Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. 14th of February. Who can believe it? How quickly this early part of the year is already flying by, despite all the restrictions that we're all living life under. Well, I'm sure many people have already had a very happy Valentine's morning and you've been thoroughly spoilt, but Valentine's is for everybody, even if you haven't got a significant other in your life. And I wanted to give my Valentine's gift to everybody out there this morning, just to cheer you all up and make you feel happy and engaged and positive about life and things looking ahead. Well, for me, Valentine's is not really about roses. I'm not a huge fan of the sort of very typical red roses that we associate so heavily with Valentine's Day. I prefer something a little bit more seasonal, something more natural. So I want to do a design using this container and this rather nice stoneware container that I'm working in here. This is a really thick, chunky container, so nice and solid to work with. And just inside here, if I just sort of show you, you'll see I've got a metal pin holder or Kenzen just attached to the base of the pot there. And that's a great thing for holding and anchoring both flowers and foliage into position. And it's just perfect, really. It's been used for many, many years. And recently, of course, as we're trying to work a little bit more environmentally friendly and sustainable, then it's really come back into its own enormously. And I'm sure people have seen these before, and I know many of my flower friends out there will already have got possibly a collection dating back from years ago. And we keep things, which is great because we can continue using them. But if you buy one of these, the good thing about it is once you've got it, it's there forever. And it's something that you can use time and time again. I would recommend each time between use, if you clean it down with a solution, something like Milton or bleach that will get rid of any toxins that are built upon there that's going to affect the next lot of flowers that you arrange in there. So keeping it nice and clean is the best answer. So ivy going in, it's still very sort of cold and wintry. In fact, there's snow on the ground as I look outside. And as many people know, this has been a very, very frosty, cold, icy week for us here in the UK. So thankfully, I got foliage already gathered. I seem to permanently have buckets of foliage in the studio, which is lucky. And at the moment, it would be impossible to cut anything because it's got that thick coating of frost over there. And if you do pick things while they're frosted, then sadly, they don't really last at all, because the plant material has gone into shutdown mode. It's closed all its breathing structure down there so it can withstand the inclement weather. So in amongst the bay, and I must say this bay leaf, it's smelling, really wonderful. So nice to work with aromatic foliages. In amongst the bay, I'm just adding in a little bit of good old Skimmia rubella, a very easy to grow evergreen shrub, perfect for the garden, perfect for really anywhere in the garden, be it shady or a light location, but nice also to containerize, put in pots. A couple of nice big Skimmia look great stood at either side of the door during the dull winter months, and it's a chance to bring a bit of colour from that wonderful ruby red bud, and that is the bud, and it opens out into a much paler pink flower with almost sort of creamy white centre to it. So I think sort of nicer in bud really than when in the full flush of flower, but I thought it's a nice romantic colour, isn't it, to include for Valentine's Day. So I've got my Skimmia, I've got my foliage in place there, and my next medium that I'm going to add in is some commercial plant material. This is some Hypericum. So a little bit of imported plant material, not British grown at this time of year, although we do grow Hypericum here in the UK on one of our flower farms on quite a large scale over in Lincolnshire, but that's available during the latter part of the year as we near the autumn months. So a little bit of commercial Hypericum. I love that glossy berry. It's so nice, isn't it? And as I'm using this, I'm thinking about all the birds that I've been feeding over, well, I'm always feeding the birds, but feeding sort of more heavily this week they'd be looking at these berries if they could see them, thinking, I wouldn't mind getting my beak around some of those and having a good old nibble. Got quite a peppery aroma, the Hypericum, but I think it's rather interesting plant material with those conical little shaped berries on there, and they look like they've been French polished, really glossy in texture. So while I'm talking about fragrance, one of the most fragrant flowers, go on everybody, breathe in, take a good sniff of that, has to be the hyacinth. And I'm using these fabulous British grown hyacinths from down in Lincolnshire, just adding some of those into here. And these are just exquisite. They really, really are just the most beautiful quality flowers. I always think cut hyacinths seem slightly decadent, don't they? Because I'm sure many of us can sort of cast our minds back to childhood where, you know, that pot of hyacinth was lovingly prepared, the bulbs were planted, and we anticipated and awaited their arrival in anticipation of Christmas. And I have to say, rarely did ours ever seem to flower perfectly for Christmas. They're either too early or too late. But to sort of cut these, it always seems a little bit harsh, a little bit criminal to do. And I've got some plants of hyacinths, some white ones and some blue ones in the kitchen. And they always go a little bit top heavy, don't they? Which is part of the sort of charm of hyacinths, I guess. Or the annoyance of hyacinths, because I always find different ways of trying to support them and give them a little bit of scaffolding to hold them in place. But yeah, to actually pick those hyacinths when you've grown them, I think it seems really hard to do. So I always feel slightly sort of a bit naughty when I'm using cut hyacinths, but they are gorgeous. Well, I really do wish there was a facility for you to press a button and enjoy the fragrance that's emitting from these rather innocent but such succulently, sweetly scented narcissi. And these, of course, are the Scilly Isle narcissi, although we do also grow them down in Cornwall on a commercial level, and they are the paperwhites. And everybody will hopefully have had the luxury of burying their nose into a bunch of paperwhites, because it's a treat that I would strongly advise everybody to partake of. There is nothing quite like that fragrance. It's just unique. The minute you smell it, it transports you into the arrival of springtime. And I think sort of the early fragrant narcissi do that. They conjure up that image that we have got spring to look forward to, and we're moving out of the depth of the winter months. Although looking out of this window, you really wouldn't believe that. But you do have that optimism, that feeling that spring is not too far away. And fingers crossed, hopefully it isn't. So in amongst my little spring Valentines arrangement, I'm now adding in what I suppose really will ultimately end up being the star performers. And these are some tulips, some gorgeous double tulips. And this one will open its little self out to this huge, big, peony-shaped flower. And I will get at least 2 weeks out of these, possibly even longer, because they're one of those things that sort of continue growing. You all know that. You put a tulip in an arrangement and it's sort of the right level, and then it keeps growing out, doesn't it? I suppose if you wanted to be a perfectionist, you could keep taking them out and re-chopping them and sort of getting them back to the established stem length that you wanted to maintain. But I don't mind that. I like the way tulips do their own thing and twist and turn. But this one, with it being a peony, a double peony flowered tulip, it opens out into almost like a full big blown, as the name suggests, peony. And with them being two-toned, you've got this sort of dusky pink with a coppery sort of undertone to the bloom. And as the petals start to fully open out, then they take on that much more sort of painted hue. It looks like they've been hand-brushed or airbrushed with a dappling of multicoloured paints, where you've got that gold and that mustard, and the pink starts to sort of deepen it in depth of colour as the stems mature. So really interesting material to watch its development. I think that is the nice thing. I like how flowers change and evolve and almost sort of take on a completely new identity, don't they, as their life cycle expands. I suppose we all take on a new identity, don't we, as our age expands, not always for the better. And then nearly there. I'm just going to finish off with a little bit of textured material. I've got some rather fantastic eryngiums, the wonderful big, buoyant, spiky looking blue thistles, which just give a very welcome change of texture against all these rather smooth, sort of soft, very satiny stems of the early spring flowers there. So my little Valentine's arrangement is really a tribute to the arrival of springtime. It's sort of paying homage to the changing of the seasons as we start to hopefully wave goodbye to winter and we move into the warmer, more gentle season of spring. So just taking all those flowers there, just sort of arranging them around the pin holder. I haven't got water in here at the moment, because I wouldn't be able to do that if I had got water in, but I am going to pop some water in there to obviously keep the flowers living and alive. And I always put some flower food in the water when I do that. I think that's a really great thing to finish with. And just to sort of complete the look a little bit here, I'm going to just add in a little tribute to good old Saint Valentine's. I've got my little heart here that I'm just going to chop down slightly. And I just made this heart earlier by just binding together some pieces, some strands of the flexigrass, but you could make that by twisting some cornus or some pussy willow, whichever you've got available. Anyway, enjoy the rest of Valentine's Day. Here's my Valentine's flowers to all my fabulous friends out there in the world of social media, and I wish you a joyous and happy 14th of February. Take care, everybody, and take time to smell these beautiful flowers.